Hello, my name is Synymata, and this is a breakdown of my song Leave Me Waiting. So just getting into it, Leave Me Waiting is the first song on my album, and it's a really special song for me because of just how fast it came together. I had written this, basically the idea of the song before Lexi hopped on it. I was just kind of going through some demos that I had, and I pulled up what was Leave Me Waiting at the time, basically the same writing and everything. And I remember when I played it for her the first time, she immediately heard like basically all the melodies in the chorus. Everything just locked in so quickly for both of us, and we were like, whoa, that's really dope. And then we ended up just starting to write the track out. And that session was insane because we wrote and recorded the vocals in basically 5 hours flat. So whenever I do breakdowns, I really love to like look at the chords in depth on every track, because I think for other producers, I think it's so valuable to kind of see times when different chord variations and stuff can help to elevate a song and do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Leave Me Waiting is basically built on 3 chord progressions. The verses are technically in like C minor, and then during the chorus and the drops, it switches over to a D flat major. It just kind of naturally helps to shift the song in a certain direction just based on the writing. And again, that's to me is like what I love the most about songs, is when just the foundational writing just kind of helps to move things forward, and then all the production, everything that's built on top of that writing, it's just there to just help emphasize what you've already written. So the intro, again, C minor chord progression. Let's take a listen to this.
We are so open, showing what's underneath the skin. Imagine what could... Oh, we could be golden if we were honest with ourselves. Is the truth too hard to trust? Oh, tell me where you're going, maybe.
And then that's when it goes into the D flat major progression. Yeah, so like I love that kind of thing. It's just like kind of switching relative modes. And then this progression is basically the same as the one that is heard in the whole chorus and the drop. But the fun thing is in the chorus and then in the build, this progression kind of inverts itself and kind of walks backwards. But then at the very end, it has this like stepping motion, which I haven't done before in a song, but to me, it's really cool. And especially in the drop, it just, again, so much of the writing of the song is just carrying the song forward. There really didn't need to be a lot of crazy effects and embellishments with the production, because to me, the writing was just doing so much already. Just to kind of listen to this section.
Tell me where your heart's been lately. Maybe you can come and save me, or will I be waiting? Oh, oh, tell me, will you come and save me? Oh, tell me, will you leave me waiting?
And that's your drop there. And to me, just against that vocal melody that we have with that, it just, I just love it every time. That's generally the chords of the song, because again, that's just repeated throughout the drop. This is the bass line of the drop, and basically that first part of the progression is repeated for the extra 8 bars after the first drop, and then it's just repeated in the second drop. And that's something that I've just learned from like over the years, is it's like, you know, when you can build a lot of depth and variations into your chords or the foundation of the track, a lot of times it's just the production just kind of falls into place instantly, because you already have so much built up with those chords that everything else just kind of takes care of itself. But really quick, I'm going to turn out the vocals so we can take a look at some of the other elements going on in this intro. Biggest one being a lot of these guitar layers here. This is a just ARP layer with a lower octave playing the first 3 notes. Whenever I do guitar stuff, I'm typically always left writing it. And then in this case, I did do a little bit of panning on it, just because there are so many layers going on. So I want to just have a little bit of just some of it being out of the way of each other, just so things didn't get too busy in the center. So besides the ARP layer, just some like 2-noter strummy guitar stuff, some just nice electric guitar. I love me some guitar rig. I know it's like a really heavy plugin, but honestly. Like there's just so many presets that just like work really well in a lot of cases. So I typically just kind of go for it because a lot of times I'm kind of, if I'm looking for like electric guitar, it's kind of the same type of sound that I'm looking for. And I know I can find it in Guitar Rig, but I know there is also like a lot of options out there for guitar processing. And then there's this other layer here, just a bunch of strums. Some of it's in unison, some of it is kind of chordal or different voices. And in this case, this is all splice loops here that I chopped up. But then my friend Tom recorded this other voice to this. And then also a lot of these other takes here were also recorded by Tom. I typically will do that a lot where I will start with splice loops of guitars. And then a lot of times it's like I'll start like chopping it up or pitching it just so it fits the track. And then I kind of realize this is the writing that I want, but I want it to sound more natural. So then that's when I like reach out to like a friend or someone to just re-record the guitars for me. So I'm going to turn off the guitars because I want to play some of the other elements. So this is like my signature thing that I like to do. I kind of call it like a sonar layer. It has like a nice eerie, distant sound to it, but it really doesn't take up a lot of space sonically. And to me, I found these kind of sounds are really useful to just kind of building up like a nice atmosphere in basically any kind of track. And you can hear this kind of sound in so many of my tracks because I just kind of love how it sounds to me. But then beyond that melody layer, I also have this other one. I mean, it's very simple, but again, when you have that against a vocal, it just feels really nice.
We are so open, showing what's underneath our skin. Imagine what could come of us. Oh.
And that's like my shtick, I would say, is just layering melodies just to kind of add movement and just textures. It's just, I love doing that. And again, this song is very heavy on the melodies, and that's exactly right where I love to be with tracks. But then getting into like the build of this, good old hypersaw. And it's something that I do a lot of times where like, this is the frequency cutoff for this. So it starts high and then it drops down before kind of picking back up again during like the actual build of the song. I do it a lot where you just kind of have this kind of movement where like, you know, you bring in elements kind of a little bit like more open and then you back it off and then you bring it back up. That to me, again, it just adds a lot of just nice evolution during a build versus it just being like a simple, you know, like just like that. Because that, I mean, that's just so boring to hear it. And a lot of times you can't even hear it at the start. And with doing something like this, it's like, you know, you introduce something, you hear it, and then it does back off to give space to whatever else is playing, but you're still feeling the presence of those elements. And then as the build comes back in, then you kind of bring it back in with everything else. And that's, I love doing that with a lot of tracks. So yeah, nice little saw pad here. Yeah, and then here I'm just doing straight fifths. Which obviously, if anyone's taking like songwriting lessons, you know, walking fifths is never a good thing to do. But again, that's really only when you do it like by itself. But in that case, I'm just trying to add more just thickness to like all the other layers that are playing here. And then of course, plucks. Love me some plucks. In this case, I am automating this macro. Yeah, just to kind of give that pluck a little bit more, it's kind of stays open on each pluck, kind of as the build goes on. So it's not just like the filter opening up, it's also the pluck is just kind of opening up by itself, just so it just sounds more full in that way as well. And then here, yep, same thing, straight fifths. Just to really help round up that low end. And then all these sounds are just basic serum, nothing's crazy here. Typically, a lot of these really simple sounds I just kind of make from scratch in every song because it's not even worth like pulling in from other songs. And then kind of getting into some of this melodic Atmos stuff that I call it. Kind of going back to like that sonar melody thing that I had here. I do that in a couple ways. So like I'll do it with like a granulizer, but then in this song, I just did it with like straight samples as well. And the nice thing with audio is it's like, you can, fade things in a nice way, directly, affect how that attack is versus it being in a granulizer, because then you start having to like edit like the attack on it and sort of automating that, and it just gets a little too much, and then you can just do it with audio. But all these layers to me, it really helps to just open up like the song, especially like in the build section, because like without it,
Tell me where your heart's been lately. Maybe you can come and say. Tell me where your heart's been lately. Maybe you can come and save me.
yeah, it's just it just helps to really open up that high end, kind of surrounding the vocal. And to me, that's just what I love to do with so many songs, is just building up a lot of atmosphere, but being in control of it, because it can get out of hand really quickly where you start having things that are just delaying super long, or you have reverbs that are just way too long and it's bleeding into everything. But again, that's why using samples is kind of nice, because then you could just kind of fade things in as you need to and not have to worry about those kinds of things. So then the other big element that comes in at this point is basically the drop ARP melody that you hear. But one thing I really like to do with songs is I love to introduce like major melodies, like kind of foreshadow it if I can in a song, because I feel like it's always nice when, you kind of hear something and then you kind of hear it like full wide open later. It's a nice way to like just kind of introduce things to a listener, and so nothing feels too sudden. And then from like a songwriting perspective, I feel like in a lot of times when I like foreshadow melodies, it typically lends itself to the song feeling just very coherent overall, because you're not just introducing random things at certain points in the track. But to be fair though, I mean, even on my album, I mean, there are songs where I do just introduce melodies just out of nowhere, but that was kind of the vibe with those songs. But for a song like Leave Me Waiting, having a nice smooth flow and kind of taking you on a journey all the way through without any harsh jumps was kind of like the intention here. So yeah, then the drop. I would say this is definitely like a lot of this is like my signature sound that I've been doing for a while. Big buzzy bass, big power lead. A lot of vocal blowout stuff, like all this stuff here. Yeah, this is just kind of how I approach writing drops like in this style. So just kind of getting into it. So the drop, like the layering of the guitar, there's some like live recorded and then some other like synthetic layers. So my friend Tom recorded this. Yeah, again, hard pan left, right, going through some guitar rig. I think this is, let's see. Yeah. So that was the dry signal. And then we have some other just straight strums in here. And it's just kind of like an open fifth kind of sound. And then I have the same melody that Tom's playing just on this. This is called Heavier 7 Strings. And I found that this is a pretty good plugin for just kind of having a pretty authentic sounding guitar. Yeah, that's pretty damn close to like someone just playing it. And obviously this is like sample based, so it's all real samples, but it just has a nice sound to it, I would say. And then getting into like the bass stuff, this is again kind of like just with my signature sound. Yeah, just pick a saw wave. I love to do a lot of voicing on basses, like +1 or +2 octave with an overtone going. And in this case, like a really aggressive, just kind of noise on that as well. Simple EQing, and then just slamming that into a maximizer. And then this is just like an overtone layer that's plucky. And then a nice clean sub to go with it. So, and that is all layered with this these real guitar takes again. Yeah, so I mean, again, that's just kind of like my signature, is just to have a lot of these really aggressive bass sounds. And then in a lot of tracks that have a lot of guitar, I typically will end up being like, it should probably have a power chord bass guitar, and that's what this is here. So then the last thing would be the drop melody, which I mean to me really kind of sells this drop, because otherwise it would just be the same melodies you were hearing in the build. Like it's okay, but with this. Yeah, so this layer, this is just like kind of like I guess that's like a square saw wavetable, and this is definitely gonna be like my signature power lead. Pretty basic air can, RCMS, diode, and then I'm just sending that through just get it on the low end. And then this is a reverb plugin that I used a lot. I still use it, which it's really old and it's probably not going to be updated like anytime soon. So I'm kind of stuck with it, but I wouldn't recommend anyone like picking this one up when there's a lot of other options like Valhalla and like Pro R2 and everything. But I just kind of know how this sounds, so I typically just use it. And then again, slamming that into a maximizer. And then a lot of times whenever you maximize something, you can add a lot of like low, like kind of frequency, like rumbles. So I just typically will just do one more high pass on that as well. And I guess I have more EQing on here as well. And something I mentioned too, because like, I mean, this melody, it's really simple. It's basically just holding a whole note the entire time, but having those pitch bends does a lot just to give it that movement with like such a simple melody. But that to me really is what sells this completely. So again, with this, it's like there's a lot of melodies in this drop going on all at once. You have this slidey lead melody, you have the strums here, you have that ARP melody, and then that same like the whole note delayed melody also is playing through here as well. And in a lot of cases, it's like, I think chords to those ones, sometimes you have sounds that you can't really hear it, but you can feel it. And with this song especially, that's definitely the case, where this melody, it's kind of like certain notes are hitting the same note as like other melodies going on, and it kind of helps to like accentuate those points in a drop. And that's what that melody is doing for me. It's just kind of adding to those notes, or it's just adding just a little bit of atmosphere to a drop, which you can kind of feel it, but maybe you don't exactly hear it, but that's okay, as long as it's not getting too muddy. So yeah, I would say that's Leave Me Waiting. Again, it's a very melody-heavy song. It's the only song in major on the album, and the chords really do a lot of the heavy lifting on this song, just helping to add variations just to like the feel of the track naturally, with the major minor modal switch, and then the progression in the build and the drop, just kind of having that variation with the steps just adds so much movement that's just baked in. And so then that way, coming and like really producing things up and making it sound really lush, it's pretty straightforward because of just how much of the heavy lifting was done with the writing. I also will say, if you want to see the breakdowns of all the other tracks on the album, definitely join my Discord or Patreon. If you want to see more breakdowns from me, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.